I'm affiliated. 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 Mic check, mic check. Let me see if I could jump on. Mic check, mic check. Mic, speaker. Yo. Alright, let me get this link right quick. And shout out to the people, man. It's the boy Swarboss. You already know what it is. Here for another stream. See the title, What Mainstream Science Won't Tell You. This is in like reply to what's been going on Q Butter channel. Hold on. Okay, let me switch my mic to my default mic. Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2. Can y'all hear me? Am I better on my internal mic or my earphones? What I'm trying to see. Let me go back to my other one. Let me see. Mic check, mic check. Yeah, they both sound hard. I don't know what I mean. Um, but if I don't, let me see what's up with these headphones. Let me see. I got a pair of these USB joints. Let me see if they work. Is it? Mic check. Mic check. Let me see. My speakers. Yo. Hello. I think these are better. Let me see. I think I gotta switch it up there. Here through the mic check. Mic check. Oh, okay. Yeah, we good now. Yeah, we good now. That sounds good. All right. All right. So here we are, man, doing a stream. Since I've been back on, I've been over at Q Brothers channel, kicking it with the brothers, and they like have this anti pseudo theme, and so which is cool, right? Because there's a lot of pseudo stuff going on. So of course we want to stay within correct information and not just tell blatant lies and misinformation, stuff like that. If there's some updated information, I think you should be open to that. So YouTube is YouTube. People have been allowed to call themselves high priest and master pastors and all type of other crazy stuff. But it gets to a point where it's like, well, what does Google say, or what do the leading scientists say? What does mainstream scientists say? What is mainstream science? And it's like people like to put themselves in an intellectual superior type of position, and it's like, to me, I enjoy critical thought. Um, and just figuring things out, looking at evidence and weighing stuff up. And, one of them lanes that I found myself in is the fact that people have been silenced in their information, and maybe because look at the man that invented the microphone that boils water and shit. He had a little microphone. You put it in the water and it boils the water, and you take the mic out and stop boiling it. Look at Tesla. Tesla was science. Look at just the different people who contemporarily mainstream science shut them down, and the people who want so bad to be so smart, who just want to agree with mainstream science, is like loud and just you know undealable. You just can't deal with them. So it's like you know um uh the a few partners over there at Q Butter Channel, they pride themselves on being correct and true in this, but they don't know how to construct conversations. They can't take criticism. They're too reactionary to words. It's like a bunch of kids. That's what it is. It's like a baby with a gun. Real Lamar, shout out to you, Real. Peace to you. I appreciate it. The real MVP. Yeah. And it's like they just pride themselves on, and they have this pack of hyena mentality, right? Where they never check each other, but then they won't let nobody else get off information unless um you're just rambling like I mean, and you know um uh, the other
Brothers over there just allowed to just ramble and ramble. Like I mean said, Africans words, their verbiage is shorter because they're in a hotter climate and talking heats the body up. And people in colder climates talk longer to stay warm. And nobody checked them on that shit. But then I come over there and I say the Piri Reese map shows um, the Antarctica without the ice cap. And no one was like, damn, that's tight, that's nice. And why? Because mainstream science doesn't believe in it. So I see that, bro. They like playing devil's advocate with you. Yeah, and that's not even the part that gets me, right? Because I can stand on information I come up with, but not letting me get my point out, getting cut off every half a sentence. Every time I say something, Sabio unmutes his mic and laughs. Added no, Sabio is the biggest fucking distractor from information I've ever seen. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, what is your point over here? I'm guessing in real life these guys got degrees or something impressive in education and this, that, and the other. But yeah, cool. Shout out to you. So I'm gonna go on some information and go through some videos. I hope y'all enjoy the videos. And I hope we're able. I was on Q Butter channel. It's been a few shows. They're like 12-hour streams. Um, which when I was doing the 12-hour streams, motherfuckers was trying to talk shit about me. But now staying live all day is the thing. But it wasn't cool back when the argument league was doing it. But I digress. But yeah, since I can't really engage them because they like engaging bums. They love having Madon over there. They love having Buddha over there. They love having fucking Chief Holiday and all these abos and this, that, and the other. And it's like they're extreme in science and they like engaging people who's extreme against science. So it's like, yeah, Lance, they love having Lance over there, you know. But and shout out to African Science, man. Shout out to you, really. I hope y'all hitting that like button on y'all way in. So it's like, what are we doing? Are we trying to really get to the money? We trying to get to the information? We trying to get to the truth? Or are we, don't give a fuck about it? This is just, something to make you feel better about yourself personally because you have a click mentality, and it's like, yeah. But they can engage me, and so I'm gonna take the opportunity of having my own channel to actually lay out the information here. They're not gonna watch it, but eventually, um, they'll come across it. Someone to tell them like, yo. Yeah, or I'll tell them, maybe I get on the panel when Devastate not hosting because Devastate just one of them hosts. I just rubbed them the wrong way. I talk truth to power, and I don't give a fuck. Q Butter gave you the mod, or we, whatever to your to the channel. I just and a lot of people, they have an ego. If I'm hosting a stream, you can't talk to me a certain way. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I don't give a fuck about that baby and shit. I'm not here to baby you. So when Devastating said that Benjamin Netanyahu was born in Philadelphia, I went against his information and he didn't accept correction initially. And then I guess he went and checked it out. And when I came back, I had brought it up to him again. And he was like, man, I don't give a fuck about that shit. So it was a very rough correction. It wasn't like, I appreciate it, brother. You was right. You know what, Suave? I see some smarts in you, bro. Nice research. No, it wasn't that. And ever since then, he's been eager to catch me on something to show that he's on my level. So it's like he'll just come out of nowhere. Did you say this? Yes, I did say that, but he don't know how to engage you anyway. And then he likes to save the other people that I'm actually engaging with. Um, when I'm asking him certain questions or this, that, and the other, he likes to moderate me. He doesn't moderate the panel. He only moderates me. Chantel, commentary, shout out to you. I have something I think you'll be interested in. Chantel, wasn't you the one that, um, if it wasn't you, I apologize, but I know it was a sister that was talking about the the 1+1 is 3 thing with um Terrence Howard. Let me know if that was you, because I do got a video with Terrence Howard. He did, I think it was at Oxford or something like that. And yeah, like I found a lot of the stuff he was saying was credible. Most of it, but it's just the way that they engage me. I feel forced to come to our own panel and actually, lay out the information. Um, I won't take the time to go through the shows to show you the points that I was trying to make and this, that, and the other. But yeah, yeah, it is what it is. So let me start getting these videos loaded up, and then we can check them out together. Together. Let me see. Um, I think I'm gonna jump it off with the Terrence Howard one. Let me see. Did I send it? It's Oxford Union channel. So yeah, but it's like those dudes are just wrong. Shout out to Alonzo. The dudes be wrong and they just lean too much, and that's another thing I don't get. Um, Saying you black power, but you rely on mainstream science when mainstream science has had Caucasian influence. They're not trying to tell you the truth about African DNA. They're not trying to tell you the truth about Africans being around the world. They're not trying to tell you the truth about Africans having advanced medicine, advanced understanding of the stars, advanced understanding of the body. Like they really trying to make it seem like only when white people get involved do we start making leaps and bounds in these lanes, which is crazy. Um, but ask your grandmama what they was telling her. It's a lot of day. Ask your great grandparents what they were being told by mainstream scientists, and how many times science had to correct itself, meaning it was wrong. And yes, science can be wrong today. Science is is right today. There's truth in science. It's, like I said, I'm not extreme. But everything is questionable, and science is hella questionable, especially when it's funded. People get paid to find the evidence that the people who pay wants. So if there's a billionaire looking for something that says eugenics is true, or white people can create the superior race because as far as evolution updates itself. Evolution doesn't regress; it only progresses. And since white people are the latest out of evolution, they're the best humans ever made. Even though they can't walk in the sun, even though they couldn't, they had a problem repopulating, reproducing. Even though their eyes, their hair, their skin, their genes are called regressive, recessive, but then they would take mainstream science and say because of evolution, we are the best human. That's just it. Okay, why didn't it share? Let me see if I. I just look it up. Okay, I believe this is the full one right here. So, and I want to know if y'all can hear it. Let me know if y'all can hear it. Well, I could check it on my end. And that's what I'm gonna do. Uh,
Well, I know we're starting a bit late. We're trying to get some stuff loaded up that we won't be able to use, so we're going to do it a little differently now. We're going to do it manually, eye to eye, person to person. I'm Terrence Howard, and I'm so honored to have been invited here to speak at Oxford. Chris is so magnificent. He's been the kindest person, and he's really an angel for you guys because he can bring a ton of people here just with his kind words. Um, how many of you are interested in acting? None. Great. Maybe a couple of y'all. So, I didn't have any training as an actor, right? No? I grew up in a real bad part of Cleveland, Ohio. Um, Wore little girls' dresses for the first 2 years of my life because we didn't have any money for clothes for me. Um, I managed to climb my way out of there by doing a fancy little thing called lying. You know, you guys do any of that? um, Back in 1986, when I started working in this business, there was no thing called the internet. So when I put my first resume together, since I was trying to go and get jobs, I go and knock at doors and go and do castings, and nobody would take me seriously because I didn't have an agent and I didn't have a resume. So I put together a 3-page resume of all the projects that I wanted to do. And I put my name on them, starring in all these things. And that was my first resume. And it got me into the door. And as time went on over the last 35 years, I filled up that thing. So it's no more lies on my resume. It's all truth. But it wasn't lies then, it was what I was going to make happen. And that's what I want to say. Most of what you are trying to accomplish today or tomorrow is the same thing you were trying to accomplish 20 years ago. You're the same person that you were then. If you lose that little spark that kept you motivated, that little piece, like this is my vocation. I love acting half the time, but there's some downfalls of it. A lot of actors end up with personality identity crisis and conflicts because you have so many characters you're playing. And if you really commit to the characters, you become like a piece of clothing and your body becomes what they put on. And the character has a tendency of wanting to own you. They don't let go. What you saw in Anthony Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter, that monster lives in him. That's why we believed it. He had to tap into something very ugly in our human nature sometimes. And as an actor, sometimes I tap into beautiful things. But like with Lucius, and the character I play with Lucius, his life is filled with turmoil. So 90% of the day, I'm walking around carrying his turmoil and also the turmoil from me and my own family. And then how do you have time to really bring yourself back to who you are? Because that's the most important thing. That's the thing that's going to bother you more than anything else. You will look at yourself one day and you won't know who you are because you don't remember who you were. Sometime along the way, or maybe at 13 or 14, we let go of the little person that kept us going. That little person that was always there. I got you, man. I'm here. I got you. Don't go in there. I ain't going in there. That person, when we get about 13 or 14, we get embarrassed of him. And we push him aside and we don't listen to him anymore. And he's always knocking. Hey, hey. And after so long of a time, maybe 10, 15 years, you don't even know him. You show up at your own door and you don't even know who you are. Your family doesn't know who you are. So it's important, no matter what you do, no matter what challenges you go through, you remember who you are.
And I'm gonna pause right there. Say something. Anybody found any truth in what he's saying so far? I did. Especially by losing yourself. I feel like, when you're young, you have these characteristics about yourself, and a lot of us have it in common. It's not like scarce. You're kind. You know, you're considerate. You're caring. You You don't want to hate. You don't want vengeance. You don't want more. You're willing to share. Oh, he got one, I got one. Now he got one, I want two. But then society, I mean, teaches you, these ills where it's like, and it trickles down from the people who understand. In order to rise in this society, you have to step on other people's toes, other people's necks. You have to cut things off from them to make it accessible to you. You can't say, well, I want to do this and I'm going to show you how to do it and you can go do it. It makes you less valuable. There's one doctor in the city, you're priceless. If you teach everybody about how to take care of themselves, no one's coming to see you. They already know what to do at home, and so capitalism. But then you get to this point where it's like, this, well, that nice shit don't work, sweet shit don't work, and the people who get respect are the more ignorant people, the people who are quick to get violent, and people want to be cool with them because they're so influential, and so they laugh off a lot of stuff they shouldn't laugh off. They act like this person's emergency is everyone's emergency, and that's just not how it is. So yeah, I can see what he's saying by that. Losing touch with yourself and not even recognizing yourself after a long time. I would like to think I did a good job in staying in touch, with me, and not letting how people treat me, how people react to me, change me into them. So what he's saying is I've been experiencing it since elementary. You know what I'm saying? Since before school. You know, my older brother would, sometimes act a way toward me, and it would be like, it didn't feel good. So it's like, do you then in return do to him what he's done to you, even though it don't feel good? I guess it's people who learn how to feel good off of doing that. Cool. But yeah, interesting introduction. Let's see if he, when he gets into this information, because he goes into like the flower of life and the tree of life and um, you know, the universe and stuff like that. So,
You may think you've been here for 20 years on this planet, but we know that energy, it is forever. It doesn't die.
and this is one of the points I was making on Q Butter's channel. Energy does not die; it's only transferred. So the energy that's in you, where was it present at before you was born, and where will it be present after you die? What does science say about that? Science doesn't have an answer for that. So now you're stepping into what could be considered spirituality, not physically represented, or we haven't observed what physically represents this energy. And this is words that science is using, energy. But then when I break that down, I get no credibility. They still go against me, and it's like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not saying spirit. I'm not saying soul. I'm not saying ghost. I'm saying energy. So
It continually recycles itself. So you know that you've been a trilobite 350 million years ago, or some part of it. Some parts of you were part of a pterodactyl. Every one of us have been a part of everything in this universe. So if we tap into those things in ourselves and remember those things in ourselves, we have that power. Now, my vocation has been an actor, and I've loved that. I've been able to take care of my family as an actor, but that's never been my passion. I was an actor because it was like Jesus walking on water for tips, because he could do it. That's what he did. It was a natural thing for him. I've always been an empath. I've always been emotionally connected to everything. But the thing that I was most spiritually connected to, that was my driving force, was physics. It was wondering how the universe really came to be. And I fell in love with this thing called the flower of life. You guys know Da Vinci. Do you know what he spent most of his life trying to figure out? Who in here knows the flower of life? Couple? I'm gonna get you something.
I ain't seen nobody raise their hand. He said a couple. I ain't seen nobody raise their hand.
because I want you guys to know.
Do you want me to hold it?
Huh?
Do you want me to hold it?
No, I'm gonna hold it up. I want you guys to know about a 6,000-year-old secret. 6,000 years, mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. Now, do you know the flower of life? Have you guys ever seen this before? Now, you know this is one of the oldest symbols in human history, right? Or do you not know? This symbol was found in the Temple of Osiris in Egypt, and it had been molecularly burned into the wall. And it's 6,000 years old. This same symbol has been found in the forbidden temples in China, sitting under the fufu dogs. And the foot on it, the flower of life, saying whoever controlled that flower of life controlled the.
And you know me. Let's see if I can find this shit. Let's see. Let me see. No, I'm gonna go to images. Let me share this. My bad. Here we go. So we're seeing the flower of life in different places. I don't know if that's the same thing. But whatever happened to all these crop circles was not white people with boards on their feet. Trust me. But yeah. Okay. The flower of life. Let me see. In Asia. What did he say? China. He say China. Life in China. And this is what he's talking about. This image with this lion, dog creature, dragon creature with his paw on it. Feel me? Okay, so let's get back to what he was saying.
The universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that Da Vinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover. The same secrets that Pythagoras was desperately trying to uncover. But the problem was they kept seeing this in a two-dimensional space. They couldn't get it out of this two-dimensional frame. And as a result, they got stuck in this plane, a flat plane. Now, what Da Vinci and all of them wanted to do, they were trying to find a way to bring this flower to life, because what is inside of it? Well, apparently, there were secrets inside of it. Shapes, they got the Merkaba and all of those other things out of it. But they were misled by something I think called a straight line. You guys believe in straight lines? You believe there's straight lines in the universe? Well, let me hit you with something. All energy in the universe is expressed in what? It's in motion. If something is still, there's no energy. Kinetic, right? All motion is expressed in what? You look at galaxies, are they expressed in straight lines? Expressed in vortices. All vortices are expressed in what? Waves. All waves are curved. Show me a straight line in nature. You show me where the platonic solids come from. Where do they have their foundations in our universe? Are there any straight lines? If you look at anything, there are no straight lines. That's been the mistake. We've been looking at these straight lines, this Euclidean way of thinking, and missing the curvature of nature. So here we are, back with the curvature of nature. And you have all these little pieces. Now, this has always been an information system. So compare some of these points. Take a point here and say, well, what's the space in between all of these things? Now, they've said that all the in-between spaces, if this is the Earth and this is the moon right here, all this in-between space is filled with what? A void. There's nothing in the void. Well, I found that there is something in the void. The elementary fundamental particles that they've been searching for at the CERN Collider, the Hadron Collider in CERN, I found that their energy signatures matched perfectly to some of the pieces that I was able to pull out of here. So I'm gonna bring some of those now. Do I have a minute? Am I good? Okay. Now, all of this was supposed to be on a projector for you guys. I don't have that. So what I do have is a bit of a Chanel bag, or an old Chanel bag, a box, as it were. And we're going to talk about a couple of items in here that are so hard to even express here. Afterwards, y'all going to have to just take a look at these. My God, I won't have the time to do it. I couldn't show you, but I am going to show you. I didn't come here not to show you. Now, whether you guys are able to express, understand some of these things, Lord help me, get confused. What I've done is I've figured out about 7 different elementary particles, fundamental particles. And then there were secondary generational particles that seemed to occur. And when these things began to build up more and more, they began to create their own systems. And these systems is what I brought to Oxford because I would like for you guys to examine them, put them to test. Because I bet you will find all the fundamental particles that they've been looking for in the unified theory of the universe. It's a big statement, but I've got a lot of stuff to back it up if I'm given the opportunity to do so. But the flower of life has been opened, and when we get an opportunity, I'd love to show you some of these things. Can I go on?
Yep, you good?
I can't, without being able to show the pieces, it's a whole different monster. But all of these wave conjugations, all of these states of matter, all of these things, there's time, it's time for that to be changed now. We have changed all of our buildings to be aerodynamic. Our airplanes are no longer based on a two-dimensional Euclidean way of life, but our math is still based on a two-dimensional way. And I think in order for us,
And this was interesting because one of the points that Sabio made when I was talking about alternative versus mainstream, right? And he was like, well, there's 12 times 12, 144. Yeah. So show me an alternative in math. And it was crazy because that's what Terrence Howard is about to do. And I didn't look for this. I just we all saw the videos, the little quick World Star videos, whatever it was, when he was standing there talking like this. And we don't listen to Terrence Howard. We listen to Terrence Howard as an actor. So when he's this soft spoken, this glossy eyed, is kind of weirded out. He's high, right? And he's talking about the flower of life has been open and this, that, and the other. Yeah, get him the fuck out of here, right? So here he is taking it to Oxford. Now that you're normalized, and you gotta really check yourself when you react to information in certain ways. You don't want to be attracted to ignorance and be dissuaded from information, even if it challenges what you stand on, if it's true information. And so that 12 times 12, I wish I would have had this in the sleeve, but that's my ego. So I could get over that. I didn't, but the truth came to me, right? So Terrence Howard is about to express that.
for us to reach the future, we have to examine that. Do you guys know about loops in math? Do you believe in loops? Do you know the square root of 2? Do you think that's a loop? Do you believe that the square root of 2 is the square root of 2? Yes or no? Hands up, no? Hello? Oh, I want y'all to take out your phone for a minute then. We're gonna do one thing. Everybody got a phone? Put it on the calculator and turn it to the side so you can get all the long numbers out of it. Okay? Now I want you to put in 2 and square root it. 2, hit the square root. You'll get 1.414213562373095 ... Right? Now I want you guys to do me a favor. Cube it. It'll see right over there. It'll be x to the 3. Can y'all do it? Have you cubed it? It'll see 2.828427121746190. Now that makes sense. I want you guys to do me a favor. Divide it by 2. Get that number? Cube it again. Divide it by 2. Cube it again. And I want you to do that until the end of your lives. And that number will still come up with 2.828427121746190. Any other number that you, above 2, that you put in and you cube and you square, cube and square and divide by 2, by the 6th operation, it has moved into an exponential number that you can't even imagine. Any number below 2 that you do that same operation with, it will go into an exponentially small matter and number. This is what we call a loop. It is illogical, it doesn't make sense, and it does not make math make sense. So these are some things that I'm bringing to the fore and that I would like to question. I would like to audit the math, the world of mathematics, and I would like to audit how we view the Platonic solids, because I think the new wave conjugations will tell a better story of how our world works. And that's it.
Now that was dope, right? So that even shows an imperfection in the absolution of numbers. That there's a fault. There still is something undiscovered, still something not unlocked, not figured out, even in numbers. So, when people lay on absolutes like that, man, and they have the authority to mute you and talk over you, and it's like, and you're focusing on black people. That's the thing with me. You're focusing on black people, saying black power, but then you're shoving this white information down our throat. And information doesn't have a race, it doesn't have a color, but when people interpret information to suit their biasness, and their biasness is white supremacy, be careful. Please, be careful. Okay, let's go.
For an electric model of the universe.
Yeah, I like this conversation too. It says open the minds.
That is in response to the Berkeley currents and all these things. It's a better version, a better vision of how we should see the universe. That's how I see it, and I think it should be explored.
So just to add some context to this, Terence and I have spent the afternoon together, and Terence has showed me a lot of this and explained to my feeble mind basically what he's theorizing. I thought the couple of things that you showed me that I thought were really good were how you explaining the story about how originally the flower of life, everybody just followed the lines and didn't understand the space, and you have the quite good models in there.
Yes.
Of how they connect together and how you have managed to put it into a 3D shape rather than just people looking at 2D. Perhaps you want to explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, the idea of, like, one of the things I've been saying, the Euclidean mindset has kept us so locked away. Like, there's tons of paperwork of Da Vinci working on the flower of life and trying to unravel it. But every single existence, every single example, you see him making straight lines and trying to make these straight lines bend in, and therefore he was never able to open it up, because all the universe is curved, all space is curved. And as a result, what I was doing in trying to find these straight lines, I abandoned the idea of the straight line. The shortest distance between 2 points is curved space because you cannot force your way straight through space. Even electricity, as it moves from a southern plane to a northern plane, it always goes northeast in its direction. And magnetism, as it expands out, it goes southwestern. And that's the spin. That's how you always know whether it's magnetism or electricity. It's the spin. Is it northeast or is it southwest? But in trying to define curved matter, I'm so sorry, I get so distracted. Trying to define the spaces, it allowed me to see that all of these in between, what we have been dealing with is these petals. All of mankind have dealt with these petals, but it's these other shapes that we've ignored constantly. Well, those other shapes were the in-between spaces. They were the things that filled up the vacuum of space. And all these particles that I have, I think, are the full proof of that. And it is also the full proof of the wave particle argument.
Yeah. Do you want to also explain a little bit about what your intention was in sort of bringing this up and sort of because something you said was the next step is like, how do you apply this?
Well, here we are on this planet. Can I do that point? Our planet is moving away from our sun at 6 inches a year. You guys know that. 15 centimeters a year, our planet is pushing away from the sun. So in less than 500 million years, our planet will be out of the Goldilocks zone. Will be somewhere near where Mars is, somewhere halfway between there. So life will not be able to be sustained on this planet anymore. So if we're going to be able to sustain ourselves as a species, we have to become interstellar. Not just interplanetary, you have to become interstellar. But with approximations, you cannot become interstellar. You cannot become interstellar with a point that will take you all the way over here with a straight line when the actual event is taking place over here. When you're going 600 quadrillion miles, you can't make a mistake. You need precision. And that's what the math is about. These pieces predict the natural distribution of matter and the distribution of where you can find yourself in that space. And I'm confident behind it. For 40 years, I've worked on this. And I think it's ready.
So I've sat also at lunch, basically trying to get my head around this, and also was very, very, very skeptical. And I put my hands up and say that. And one of the things that you mentioned was sort of about how this applies to, I think it was the electric sun model. And that's where it's a theory that suggests that the sun is powered from external forces rather than nuclear fusion, which is the general consensus among scientists. And the reason for that is because there's not a production.
Exactly. Said we just had a black man that created a machine that produces clean water from the air vapor. Awesome. He didn't accept limitations and explore more, and boom, love it. And where's he at? Why is he not on the front of Lil Baby's album cover? Why is he not in front of Kanye's West album cover? Why is Jay-Z not rapping about him? Why is we being taught about the Louvre and French painters and and gay clothing designers? Why? When we have our own culture, our own advanced culture, that's not just sex and murder and drugs. It's intelligence. It's creating clean water. It's creating clean energy. Let me see if I could pull this up right quick. Not to really digress, but we do this. We go down little tunnels every now and then. Here's one that I like for people to actually know about. Shout out to Queen Cascade, please. Here's one I like people to know about, right? And this dude is from Zimbabwe.
Unveiled a self-powered TV. Zimbabwean inventor has just unveiled a self-powered TV.
Okay, I don't know what happened to the
Hey guys,
sound.
welcome back to the
What
channel.
happened to the sound? Let me see. Let me make sure I share the sound screen share. Yes. Sharing the sound. That's crazy. There's no sound here. What is going on? Okay, hold on. Let me see what this is. I found it.
And if you do eventually end up liking the video, please hit that thumbs up button. In this video, we're going to talk about Maxwell Chikumbutso's latest invention, a self-powered television. For those who don't know who he is, here's a bit of background about this man. Maxwell Chikumbutso started a company called Saith Technologies over a decade ago. He has since unveiled an electric car, which doesn't need recharging, a helicopter, which can run on up to 5 fuels, including paraffin, drones, and generators, which run on radio waves. What makes Maxwell Chikumbutso's inventions unique is that he did not go to school to study engineering or mechanics. In fact, Maxwell dropped out of school when he was just 14 years old. His ideas are as a result of research and visions from Google. His latest invention is a self-powered TV. Imagine a TV that does not need electricity from your house to operate. This is exactly what Maxwell Chikumbutso's latest invention is. Here he is in action explaining his technology.
This is our self-powered TV that we have designed. The first in the world to use such kind of a technology where a television is powered with a radio frequency. So as you can see right now, I'm powering this television. So this is the first television in the world that uses self-powered cell. It is all in one. You don't need to put it on electricity or on solar panel or anything. As it is a complete solution. Behind the television, you can see that there is a microsonic energy device in this box. This is the device that is converting radio frequencies into pure energy. As you can see, the power of the cable was supposed to be here. On all traditional televisions, power comes here, but there's no power, as you can see. The television is working as it is. So in layman, I think this television is we can call it a self-powered television.
Maxwell Chikumbutso has in the past struggled to patent his products. One, because he's not a qualified scientist, and two, because his inventions apparently go against the laws of physics. But we sure hope that this self-powered TV will become a reality in people's homes. Especially
Okay. And then I seen one that says busted. So let's see what
behind
they
the
say.
television, you can see that there is a microsonic energy device. This box, this is the device that is
to operate.
The clean energy or oil mafia, the people that have a lot to lose.
The human ability to believe stupid stuff.
If he continues with his invention, they are going to get out of market, and they don't want that. Like, this man is a genius.
Obviously, stupid stuff is
impressive. Most impressive.
In one of my last videos, we
Back
watched
to the
Johnny
movie
gushing
screens,
up
back to the movie clips and stuff like that. But let's see, this it shouldn't take that long to show that he's lying. Let's see.
about how the US military was seeing UFOs on a daily basis.
To me, what's actually more compelling about what this guy just said is
because we were seeing these so much.
he is saying that these pilots have been seeing these things.
You know, essentially all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Like, yeah, I get it. The translucent cube thing is like more tantalizing, but like the fact that these pilots
report was recorded by U.S. Navy personnel on the ship for hours.
Now they going in the UFOs. You're supposed to be debunking the TV.
Energy from radio waves and uses it to power this TV.
First in the world to have such kind of a technology where a television is powered with a radio frequency.
The video evidence for it is much better than Johnny's UFO footage. And I was immediately taken back some 15 years to the Zimbabwean witch doctor, who not just claims she can make oil seep from rocks, which is, actually kind of where oil mostly comes from. No, she can make refined diesel ooze from rocks. And what did the president of Zimbabwe offer to her for this miracle? Of course, 2 head of cattle and 3 buffalo. And if it was true that magic could really do this, it would completely revolutionize Zimbabwe's position. And so they gave her a load of money to do more of it. It turns out magic wasn't real, because there are some remarkably robust rules about reality. Things like, for the most pedestrian things, conservation of mass. Stuff doesn't just appear and disappear, let alone specific molecules like diesel. But hey, if there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that they're right, it could change the world.
I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
That. No, you're not all going to make it.
It's called the Hyperloop.
The Hyperloop?
Hyperloop, yeah.
It's also a lot faster. You can basically get from downtown.
One to do was give this guy a few $1,000s processing fee, and you could be a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. Or what if you did just have to pay $1,000 to attend a course and camera, infrared bird?
Report is about a Zimbabwean inventor that developed a cordless television.
Microsonic energy device, or green energy, has put Zimbabwe on top in the history books of science and technology as the founding father of an amazing green generator. May very well become the answer to power challenges facing not only Zimbabwe, but other nations across Africa and beyond.
The beauty about Maxwell Chikumbutso's inventions is that when it comes to his off-grid generator, a team of engineers from the United States came into the country, which is Zimbabwe, tested these technologies, and verified that it was in fact genuine.
And you know, if some random guy says that something was verified by a team of
So
American
basically,
engineers.
this is a hit piece. Dude, this is crazy. This is a hit piece. You know how easy it would to just come on and say he's lying. Look at the cord sticking out of here or whatever. So yeah, we have that. People making condensing water out of the air, drinking water. Flint has a water crisis. Why doesn't the president flood Flint with these things? And I could imagine if Flint having a water crisis, there's other places that have, problem getting clean water. You got this dude with these, you say, a car that doesn't need to be recharged. Drones and things that run on radio waves. And that's energy. And he has now a TV. Think about that. I got 4 or 5 TVs in his house. If they were self-sustaining, running off radio waves, think about what that'd do for the bill. And if you could do that to a TV, you could do that to a refrigerator. You could do that to a stove. You could do that to a desktop computer. You could do that to a Wi-Fi box. Think of that. Think of your Wi-Fi box, your refrigerator, your TVs, your video games, your laptops, your desktops, all unplugged from the electrical circuit board, the electrical grid. That should be what we want. Okay, let's get back to the Terrence Howard video. Let me see. Chantel says, them folks tell us we need a degree to be considered intelligent. Clearly, they lie much. Some colleges are established by people that don't have degrees. Of course, and universities are used to funnel the information, right? Oh, you're smart. Come over here. Let me get that. And then you never hear of when 15 years later, Magnavox comes out with the information, the technology. These people are taking, and put it in the wings of these degree holders, and then we lose economically as a people, resource-wise as a people. We get more unhealthy. Cascade said, when I was in university, I became friends with a foreign student from Nigeria. A black man, he created a small miniature solar power. He was making it to take the invention to take to Africa. Let's see.
Evidence to suggest that the byproduct neutrinos are there. And
The neutrinos
what Terence is trying to prove, I think, is that because the fact that you can't detect whether neutrinos are there or not, there must be another way in which they're powered. My argument to him is that to suggest that neutrinos don't exist, because we have a lot of evidence to not know that they're physically there, but a lot of the effects and how they interplay with other things, to suggest that they don't exist is not only to get rid of that small theory, but also quite a lot of other huge laws of physics.
Are they laws or are they ideas of physics?
Well, why don't you respond to that and talk about how a lot of people have that sort of narrow mindset? You talked about identity.
Yeah, the identity element. And then the things that make our math work. Like if I said to you, what's 1 times 1? What'd you say? 1? It equals 1? Now, what would Newton say is that? Action times an action. That's a reaction, right? Anybody in here that thinks 1 times 1 equals 1, then you give me 2 pounds and I'll give you a pound back. And we'll call that even, right? Because 1 times 1 equals 1. An unbalanced equation. What we need to do is, the first thing in math is you're supposed to have a balanced equation. 1 times 1 equaling 1 is an unbalanced equation. But the identity element, which is like the Jim Crow laws of the 60s, they say that anything multiplied by 1 becomes that same number as itself. Well, the laws of physics has to break down in order for that to take place. Action and reaction for 1 times 1 to equal 1. In comparison to if I said, what's a dollar times a dollar? Anybody know it's a dollar? Well, what's a dime times a dime, or 10 pence?
10 pence, yeah.
10 pence times 10 pence? That's a pound, right? 10 pence times 10 pence, is that right, honey? What about 100 pence times 100 pence? That's a pound times a pound, right? That's $100, ain't it? What about a quarter? What about 4 quarters times 4 quarters? That's $1, right? That's a pound, right? Well, that's $4. Now, all of these things are legal. The banks can say $1 times $1 is $1 and give you that. Or the banks can say to a friend, $1 times $1 is a quarter times a quarter. It's 4 quarters times 4 quarters, and give that person $4. They can say to another person, $1 times $1 is 100 pence times 100 pence. That person gets $100. So that money is generated. And this is all legal. Do you think it's not happening in the banks? This is what 1 times 1 equaling 1 has got us. This inconsistency of our monies and our economy is sitting in the balance. And the rest of our future is sitting in the balance because our science has been stunted as a result of the problems in mathematics, because math asks for the basic laws of physics to break down in order for 1 times 1 to equal 1. In order for 1 times 0 to equal nothing, laws of conservation of energy has to disappear. And math is the foundating laws of math is supposed to support the laws of physics. They are arm in arm. They cannot be in controversy with each other. So we need an audit on the Platonic solids. We need an audit on the square root of 2, and we need an audit on action and reaction. Or we either got to get rid of, we say 1 times 1 equals 1, and there's no action and reaction. One or the other. You can't have both. And until we make that change, we're in trouble. We're going to be stunted as a species.
Great. Should we open up to questions from the audience?
No, I don't want to talk to them. Come on.
If you have a question, raise your hand nice and high. You can ask about the physics or the acting. Terence.
Yeah. And that passion is what's going to drive you. The lines afterwards that you're just sitting there.
Of yours.
You get lost in it if you allow yourself. It's just a river, man.
I'll get the other one.
if the truth is in the character, if the character is written well, say 40 years of me dancing on this thing. For 40 years, I was told I was wrong. For 40 years, I was told that, the Platonic solids and all those were the solids. You have to have faith in self. All of this, I can sit up here and tell you guys that, you know what, I'm the smartest man in the world. I figured out what Da Vinci and none of them could do.
Right here, Terrence is speaking at Oxford, and he's talking about um the tree of life, the flower of life, the design that's been found in all type of ancient places all over the world or whatever, and how Da Vinci was trying to unlock the information, different great thinkers, scientists or whatever were trying to figure out the flower of life. What is this power that it holds? Because obviously it means something. And he was talking about how he's figured it out. And I'm trying to find the part. I think MJ, shout out to MJ. I think this the part right here where he discusses he's been thinking about this since the womb.
Truth is, you really want to know the truth? This may be crazier than the fiction. The truth is, I woke up inside my mother's womb at about 6 months of age. I woke up inside of there. Like, boom. I don't know what had happened. Maybe my mother went through some trauma or whatever. But I woke up and I was like, oh, God, I'm here. I'm here. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. This is truth. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Just go by. Every once in a while, I would think about something and this would come over. And I didn't know it was my hand. I thought it was a friend. I had my whole name for it.
He was talking about how there's a flaw in our science due to a flaw in the mathematics of science. Not one apple plus one apple is two apples and nothing like that. But the mathematical science that's being used to figure things out about the universe, space, time, existence. The math is off because they're using straight lines and everything is curved and they're focusing on the wrong shapes, yeah. So, and I also remember being in my mother's womb. I remember holding my own umbilical cord. I remember that feeling of an umbilical cord, that relationship I had with that umbilical cord. It was something that I had flash memories of when I was young. I think other than that, like my earliest memory, I was probably 1, 2, right? My brother had got this robot. This is like 82, okay, 81. And it's like it's just a little tank wheel track thing. But on top of it, it got this blow up balloon of this robot, and they had blew it up in the room and set me on the floor and drove it out the room, and it terrified me, and I never forgot that. That was something that I remember. Prior to that, I remember the umbilical cord, and I would have flash memories of it all while I was a child, and I never actually felt anything like it. I couldn't remember. Damn, what toy was that? What was that I remember for a while? At that point, it was the majority of my life, right? You're in the womb, you're there for 9 months, you come out, and 7 months later, it's like I've been in the womb more than I've been outside. So once so it was constant. It was there. Right? It was there like my brother was there, like my mother was there. That's like your mother being there the first part of your life, the first year of life, and then you never see it again. You're going to always have these flash memories of it. And so when he talked about coming to in the womb, I believe that. Shout out to Moonflower. Peace to you. Y'all hit this like button, please. Share, give a thumbs up. This is in response to Q Butter's panel. Not Q Butter. They really don't let me engage Q Butter. Let me take that back. I haven't really engaged Q Butter. Of course, that's who I'm shooting for. You know, I feel like that's about the only useful conversation I can have. That's about the only person who could really teach me something constantly. He's really the only person over there that could correct me consistently. You know, everybody else may have a point or two to correct, but we can't even get into a conversation to get to that point. But I know that there's things that Q Butter knows that I don't. You know, so it's like, let me see if I'm wrong or let me see if I'm right. This is what I think is this is the reason why I think it. Then I don't want to have to go read 1,000 books. I don't want to have to pay hundreds of dollars for no information. You have the information. You've read the books. Weigh what I'm saying against what you know is the truth and help me. That is. So, but yeah, they okay, let's keep going.
Truth is, I woke up inside my mother's womb at about 6 months of age. I woke up inside of there. Like, boom. I don't know what had happened. Maybe my mother went through some trauma or whatever. But I woke up and I was like, oh, God, I'm here. I'm here. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. This is truth. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Just go by. Every once in a while, I would think about something and this would come over. And I didn't know it was my hand. I thought it was a friend. I had my whole name for it. Inside that womb, you were conscious. You woke up because with our son Kieran, when he was my wife was 6 months pregnant, we would put the light on her stomach and he would follow it and push on it. And then we'd put the music and we'd put it all the way over to the other side and he would crawl all the way over to the other side of the stomach and push at the light with the music. So what I'm saying to you, you are conscious inside the womb, but we have no common frame of reference. But I remembered, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, because I knew I'd been here. Don't forget. And you know what I didn't want to forget? This flower of life. Because apparently I'd been interested in it at a given time. And I came out and I was born. The first thing I thought about when I was 5 years old, I was obsessed with bubbles. I was like, why does a bubble take the shape of a ball? Why not a square or a triangle? And I would go and try and make square or triangular bubbles. And you could never do it because it turns out everything expands as a sphere and everything contracts in geometric form. You drop a pebble into the pond, it expands in a perfect sphere unless there's something in the way. The moment it hits the edge of the shore and starts to come back, it's the contracting waves that hit the expanding waves that creates the initial geometries. Everything expands as a sphere, everything contracts in geometry and fits, basically. Right. So what I'm saying, and what I tried to tell you guys earlier, this is not your first time, it's not your first rodeo, and it won't be your last rodeo. Don't panic in this life. You can actually, there's no sense of death. Everything goes to sleep and it wakes back up again. Refolds and unfolds, refolds and unfolds. And if you're wise, if you're careful, because you can.
And that's crazy because I didn't hear him actually say that initially because I listen to a lot of the stuff while I'm at work. I download the video and I listen to the audio while I'm at work. But I have the video, but I just kill my screen listen to audio unless it's something I need to see. Then I go look at the screen. But yeah, that's what I was saying. The energy only transfers. So if the energy that you are that animates your body only get transferred, there's no death. And the only proof we know that energy exists is in a body. And so once it leaves this body, it enters another body. Once that body cannot contain that energy, it enters another body. And that's why we reproduce. But it's like they want to trick you into a life, a death, a heaven, a hell, a beginning, a ending. And you're greater than that. You're way greater than that. You didn't wake up with a book in your hand. You woke up inside your mother's womb. Whether you remember it or not. You wasn't born January 1st and December 31st. You had no memories. You came out January 1st. You start to look, that wasn't your first time looking. You start to smell, that wasn't your first time smelling. You start to think, that wasn't your first time thinking. Consciousness doesn't enter the body upon birth. The energy is in there while the body is even still developing. But this is the stuff that people would laugh and giggle and kick at because science says. Okay, so shout out to Terrence. I wanted to get into these other videos because another discussion that we was having over there was because there's this big old aboriginal Pan-African fight that's going on in conversation, this intellectual war, where the Pan-Africans are saying, we came here on slave ships. There was no Africans here, no black people here before the slave trade. And then you have the Aboriginals who are saying there were black people here before the slave trade. In fact, the slave trade never existed. We're not African. The Africans was over there. We was over here. We're black. They're not. And then the other side has their own extreme where they saying, no, when the truth is, when the evidence shows you that the first time people sailed the ocean weren't white people. The first time crossing the Atlantic wasn't white people. You think white people the only one who went around and discovered stuff for themselves? Like, come on, man. We were mastering the stars. You don't look up until you ran into a wall. You wake up in the room, you're looking for a way out, you look around. Once you see there's no wall, no door, you look up. So what I'm saying is, coming to existence on this world, you look around. And then you travel around as much as you can until you say, I'm back in the same spot I was. Then you look up. Now you have the chance to say, what's out there? Because I know everything down here. So just the fact that they was that deep into the stars itself let you know this was already understood to a very reasonable point. We have the Piri Reis map depicting Antarctica without ice. White people didn't discover Antarctica to the 80s, the 50s. When was Antarctica discovered? (1820). 1820? 1820? We had already been enslaved and on our way to being free. Like, America's been established. And we have the Piri Reis map, who I think this was created in the 1500s, off of maps that was pre-source, that was made already and found, and then they put them together. Oh, this map matches this map, and then the Piri Reis map, the 1800s, something like that. But yeah, we have the Dogon who knew about Sirius B before we had the information, before we had the technology to discover Sirius B. How do they know that? We were already an intelligent race. We regressed in information. And now we're getting smarter again. And we're impressing ourselves with stuff that our ancestors already knew. But since the information and technology is being advanced artificially, not organically, we don't even got a relationship with the stuff like we would have. And it's more of replacing you than working with you. And we're so impressed with that we don't even look at organic intelligence. We don't even look to see if the human eye can be trained or improving naturally to see further, to see more colors. We don't even see if we get into a certain diet, if we're on a certain geological pinpoint on Earth, under a certain part of the informational grid, Can we hear better? Can we live longer? You know, we just don't let technology, the technology of the body advance, because the people who are in control of it now never understood the intelligence of it before. They still don't know how the Dogon knew about Sirius B. They got people that 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 are able to live in conditions that they say they shouldn't be able to live in, whether it's dry or underwater, and you know, or you know, hot or cold. They didn't understand. You're talking about the people that couldn't go out into the sun versus people who could walk 2, 3 days at a time on a minimum water and food, not complaining, not famished, not falling down. People who could run longer, people who could jump higher, people who could do things with their voice, people who could lift more, people who could go higher, people who could go lower. You don't think about it because it's in you. But when you lack those things, that's why you think about Lamborghinis and condos and bags and shoes, because you lack those things. But you're not worried about the organic intelligence that allows you to be better physically. And the brain is a physical thing. So advancing the brain means more than what we understand. Oh, that's the rose one. That's hard. Let me see it. What's in there? Oh, thank you. You said happy birthday. This is for my birthday? This is my birthday? When? Oh. I about to say, don't tell me today is the 12th. Thank you. Thank you. Shout out to Bell. Shout out to Bell. Shout out to the missus. And yeah, advancing the brain, we don't understand what that means for us physically. But you gotta be able to explain how certain monuments were built, how certain megaliths were constructed, how certain aspects of space were depicted, how dinosaurs were depicted. Okay, so that was another conversation we had. So I want to get into this right here. Okay. I appreciate y'all patience and y'all interest. Hit that like button, please. So I would agree with you on organic versus artificial replacement, yeah. Because their bodies can't do the things our bodies doing. They're trying to artificially compensate for that. You know? And then once you start leaning on their artificial compensations, you lose your reality with the natural organic intelligence or ability to do that. Now that you drive everywhere, you can't walk like you used to as a people. Now that you drive everywhere, you can't run. Your body's not conditioned to run and walk and like it used to. You're becoming a better driver. Your hand is adapting to the steering wheel. Your foot is adapting to the gas pedal, the brake pedal. It's not adapting to running. You don't run. You go outside, guess who running? White people. Running. Downtown. Midtown. Through the ghetto. Because they're trying to gain something that you never was taught to appreciate in the first fucking place. And I'm going to find out, it's in the medical book, that the first 3 years of white people's life, they're mentally retarded. Not bad, but there's a retardation in their mental development for the first 3 years, and black people don't got that. Africans don't have that. Okay, let's go. And this channel is called Without History. You may have heard of it, you may not have. But let's get it. Let's get it. This is about China's origin, and the reason how this connects to the Aboriginal Pan African fake fight quarrel of the dummies is because they say that the first people came out of Eurasia, right? And it kills me how it's like Europe. They got to put white people in there somehow. But people came out of Asia through an iceberg that they have no proof of. People came out of Asia into America through an ice bridge that they have no proof of. But this is what mainstream archaeology, mainstream history, historians, mainstream scientists will tell you. The reason the Native Americans were here is because some Asians crossed the ice bridge from Asia to America on foot. All right. All right. It sounds like some stock video. Y'all let me know if y'all get a strike. I don't think I got a strike yet. But I'll take that lick. But I think this would be cool to play. I think this is okay to play. I mean, just look at the structures, man. Just look at the structures. Look at the structures. Look at the structures. You know why this stuff ain't important? Because it's not white. This is some of the most impressive stuff. How did they do this? How did they do this? How the fuck did they do this? Look at that. And this is the door. Look at the doorway. Look at the human. Is there somebody back there? No, okay. But look at the doorway. Look at this door to the left. Can you see this door over here in this bottom left corner above the play button? There's a square. That's a door. Measure that to this. Just to show you the size of it. Now look at that and look at the people sitting in the chair. Bad. Bad. The reason I worded it the way I did is because of the verbiage in the medical book. Plenty of nations and people voyaged the open seas. Even in the Bible, the black Hebrew Israelites voyaged the open seas. Man. So, let me see. All right.
It is only through a diligent study of the past that one can perceive the mosaic of the self. In 1990 BC, the god King Fuxi bestowed onto the land that was to become the empire of the middle. Government, domestication, cooking, philosophy, rule of law, monument building, as well as kanji, the system writing. These injections of culture set into motion the great wheel that was to become the empire of China. As its first emperor, we must ask, where did he and the people he belongs to come from? Where did he draw his wealth of knowledge and culture from? I cannot thank our supporters enough. Your contributions are helping to keep this channel independent. Also, we have noticed active efforts by certain groups to try and suppress our videos. If you really like our content, you can help by sharing our videos wherever you can and by leaving a comment. In no way are we saying that the ethnic Chinese are not capable of, nor did they contribute meaningfully to the creation of the Chinese empire. But in our pursuit for truth, we must follow where the evidence takes us. Before we go into the genetic, osteology, bone studies, cultural, and historical evidence, let us first cover the often ignored evidence of the similarities between Chinese characters and hieroglyphics. And here, the similarities are too numerous to attribute to chance.
Now, how most languages, most wording systems are created, they're not independent. They stem from a prior language, a prior writing system. But if people over here never had contact with people over here, how do they have similar writing systems, language systems, with some examples of being identical? Identical words and identical symbols. How do you explain that in science? So if mainstream science is telling you these people never contacted each other, you're stuck and you're handicapped because you can't think critically and say, well, maybe these people did come into contact with each other outside of the means that we are conscious of. And they gonna say, get the fuck out of here. What, flying carpets, UFOs, they gonna go somewhere extreme. Like we never built boats. Okay.
Let us begin with the fact that both writing systems use logograms. These systems of writing use symbols or signs to convey meaning for a whole word. We have seen this before in our video where we reviewed the evidence of multiple Mesoamerican writing systems have their roots in the Kemetic hieroglyphics. We see the same pattern again here, where a very large number of words can be seen to have the same logos, the same symbols. See how the representations of sky and sun are virtually identical or similar in roots to their...
Now, I'm one of the people, the writing system thing, I had a hard time seeing it, right? Now, them using logograms and pictograms and this, that, and the other to say this is a name. If it's held within this box or has this shape next to it, this is a name. If it has this shape next to it or is inside of this shape, this is a place. I got that. But then when they start saying, look how this character is similar to this character, not understanding how writing was constructed, right? It was like a kind of confusion to me. It was hard for me to get. I was slow getting it. But
their Egyptian counterpart.
I got it, right? So we're looking at these right here and saying, like, this was one of the ones that I was like, how is that similar? How are these similars? But it was the circle with the dot, right? This one looks kind of open. This one looks kind of closed. The singular line, and then these connecting lines. And a person that deals with language, that sticks out to them. And of course, you see the 3 spikes going up. Over here is the 3 spikes going up. And the further you go back, the ones on the right are older than the ones on the left. 3 spikes going up.
Also notice how the older version of the Chinese characters look even closer to Medu Necher. In some instances, the symbols are pretty much interchangeable. See the ancient Egyptian logos for child and that of the Chinese. And there are a lot more. I'll leave the links in the description for you to explore. A particular aspect of ancient Chinese culture that has endured to this day is the tradition of excellence and artistry in its calligraphy system. The refined calligraphy of the Chinese writing mimics the tradition of
Yeah, I spoke on that, right? There was this reported discovery in the Grand Canyon by a local newspaper out of Arizona. And it was reported that some workers for the Smithsonian found a cave that had they call everything a tomb. Everything is a burial tomb. Nothing's ever a laboratory or a school or restroom or nothing like that. Everything is a fucking place, to worship dead people. But so they found this tomb, this grand cave within the Grand Canyon, and it had sarcophagus and Egyptian artifacts in the indents in the wall, and they took a lot of it. And I don't remember if this was the spot where they said they blew it up so no one else could get in there or whatever it was. But upon looking for these people, they couldn't find them ever working for the Smithsonian. even though it was reported in the newspaper. In a credible newspaper, they got that these people work for the Smithsonian and they got their names. You know, but let's go.
Perfectionism in writing hieroglyphics. So Chinese writing system didn't just borrow the characters and their meaning from Kemet, but they also inherited its essence and its art. But if ancient Chinese writing is a derivative of hieroglyphics, who brought it to China? And did they bring anything else? Pyramids. Pyramids aplenty. 100 pyramids in the area of Xi in central China. This evidence is very consequential, because soon after the pyramid building experience from Kemet begins, and as Black people are shown to be moving east in around 2500 BC, pyramids and mastabas are appearing in central China. At the end of the Second World War, U.S. Air Corps pilot named James Gaussman claimed to have seen a gigantic white jewel-topped pyramid while flying between India and China during World War II. But his statement was kept a closely guarded secret of the U.S. military for 45 years before it became public knowledge. All the way back in the Xia dynasty, China was building pyramids, and some even larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. This points to the fact that the leaders at the time had access to a significant amount of labor. That means, even back in this remote period, China already had a large population, probably thanks to the agricultural revolution brought about by the Africans at the top of the Shang dynasty. But the similarities to Kemet don't stop there. The ancient Chinese also practiced mummification. In fact, one of the best preserved mummies is Lady Dai from the Han dynasty in 206 AD. Or like this 700-year-old mummy discovered by chance in eastern China, we witness the hand of the Africans.
Mummy who?
Or like this 700. The ancient Chinese also practiced mummification. In fact, one of the best preserved mummies is Lady Dai from the Han dynasty in 206 AD. Or like this 700-year-old mummy discovered by chance in eastern China, we witness the hand of the Africans again. China, just like Egypt, also performed sarcophagus burials for their kings. Just look at these magnificent tombs from Chinese 6th century emperors and compare them to the Egyptian king's sarcophagus.
And I found Lady Di. Let me share this right quick. Oh, brace yourself. It is a mummy. Yeah, this is, and a lot of these, I guess, censored. And then you really look at it, but they found this creature, this mummy right here. And mummification was supposed to be unique to Egypt, you know. I believe they had stopped practicing it or something. But that's a mummy in Asia. Okay, let me get back to this.
Let's remember that the oldest sarcophagus in Egypt dates back to 2613 BC, at the time of the building of the pyramids. So the Kemetic tradition would have been much older, and thus the originator. Ancient Chinese afterlife is also borrowed from the Kemetic concept of afterlife. Ancient Chinese believed that the spirit or soul would continue as they had in life. This mimics exactly what the ancient Egyptian believed and practiced. In fact, just like the old kingdom Kemetu, the ancient Chinese nobility would accompany the dead with their servants and slaves along with other personal belongings, a practice that was later discontinued in Kemet. In Kemet, it was frequent to bury the dead with their board games and their boat. The Egyptians believed that it would help their soul travel to the afterlife. Many ancient Chinese graves had board games and chariots instead. but the cultural motifs are identical. Pyramids, sarcophagus, burying of belongings, vessels for the afterlife. Again, the similarities are too significant to be dismissed, and we can see how the ancient from the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex, especially its ruling class, sparked the early Chinese civilization.
So that was easy to follow, right? Their burial systems were similar, if not the same. You know, they would bury these people. They would bury them with belongings. They would bury them with their servants. They would bury them with their cattle. You know, this is an example of, I guess, two cows, oxen, mules, whatever, that was used to pull their chariot, being buried with them. Shout out to Terry Smoke. Peace, Terry Smoke. In our building. What's good, big dog? Appreciate you.
This even extends to the scribes. The scribe was also very important in both civilizations, but also the concept of the god king, both taken from the ancient Egyptians. Another very interesting fact is that the Shang dynasty, the founding dynasty of China, practiced the African child naming convention by assigning names corresponding to the weekday they were born. For example, in Ghana, the Ashanti still name their kids Kufuor, Kujo, Kwame, and so forth, which are old Kemetic names, from their migration all the way back in ancient Kemet to the Ghana Empire situated in Mali, to their present kingdom. This practice was also present in the ancient Chinese Shang dynasty. Another coincidence between Kemet and China is that their calendars were somewhat similar. Chinese calendar is described as a lunisolar calendar, just like its older Kemetic counterpart. But one question still remains. Was it just a cultural influence, or did a large contingent of Kemetu, ancient Egyptians, settle in China in the Bronze Age? To begin, we must understand how ancient China started and the dynasties that created it. There are three founding dynasties in ancient China: the Jia dynasty, 1900 to 1700 BC, Shang Yin dynasty, 1700 to 1050 BC, and the Zhou dynasty. The Zhou dynasty was the first dynasty founded by the Mongoloid people in China. The Xia and Shang dynasties are said to have been founded by a people who came from the West, those who have been called the Na-Ki, which translates to Na, black, Ki, man. This would imply the first two oldest dynasties of China, the ones that brought in the foundations of their civilization, including writing and pyramid building, were Black African, or at the least ruled by Black people from the West. That Black civilization, as we have seen from research covered in previous videos, spanned from the Western Sahara to Kemet, Egypt, Asia Minor, and as we shall see today, Far East. That is China. The same Nubian stock that started the Greek, Etruscans, and Sumerian civilization. There is now a very large body of evidence, skeletal evidence, written account, artistic depictions, and oral history that shows that well into the Bronze Age, a very powerful Black civilization ruled from Western Sahara all the way to Levant, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, China, and Japan. Throughout all these lands, numerous skeletal remains and antecedents depicting clearly Africoid gods are present. They even crossed the Atlantic and helped seed civilization in Mesoamerica, as we have seen in our previous videos. If ever there was a case for an Atlantean civilization that was spreading technology and know-how to the whole world, that would be that civilization of Black people which lasted from 12,000 BC, when Africoid Black people discovered agriculture in the Levant and spread it around the known world. Ancient Egypt was but a division of this ancient civilization, as their own text attest. But this is a topic for another day. The first Chinese emperor, Shang Tang, the ruler of the Na-Ki, the Black Men, brought about several totems of civilization China. Among his credits are establishing government and originating social institutions, as well as cultural inventions. Emperor Tang is believed to have ruled from in 1600 and started the Shang dynasty by overthrowing the last king of the Xia dynasty. Amongst the as well as cultural in China. Text attest. The first Chinese emperor, Shang Tang,
Gonna try to find Shang Tang. Okay. And about him. Okay, I'm seeing it say Shang Tang recorded on oracle bones as in English. Tai Yi or Dai Yi was the first king of the Shang dynasty, traditionally considered a virtuous ruler, as signified with the comedic name of Tang the Perfect given to him. According to legend, he overthrew Ji, the last ruler of the Zhai dynasty. Tang ruled Shang, one of the many kingdoms under the suzerainty of Shi dynasty for 17 years. During Jai's reign, Shang grew in power initially at the expense of Shi's other vassals. He was able to win many supporters from as many as 40 smaller kingdoms. Tang recognized that Jai mistreated his people and used this to convince others. According to legend, in one speech, Tang said that created chaos was not something he wanted, but given the terror of Ji, he had to follow the mandate of heaven and use the opportunity to overthrow Zaya. As an advantage, he pointed out even Ji's own military generals would not obey his orders. Let me see. That was a bit. Tang's reign was regarded as a good one by the Chinese. He lowered taxes and conscription rate of soldiers. His influence spread to the Yellow Rivers. I'm trying to see. Anything about Black? Or where he was from, or this and other. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing on him.
the ruler of the Naqi, the black men, brought about several totems of civilization China. Among his credits are establishing government and originating social institutions, as well as cultural inventions. Emperor Tang is believed to have ruled from in 1600 and started the Shang dynasty by overthrowing the last king of the Xia dynasty. Amongst the many rulers in China, Shang Tang is notable for the inventions he brought forth. He is said to be the originator of the I Ching, the Book of Change. It is among the oldest and most revered system of philosophy. Emperor Hung Wu was founder of the great Ming dynasty of China. And there are indications that these early rulers were black, revered as god kings, and then elevated to mythical figures, similar to Osiris and Imhotep. Even in the White Garment Hall of the Shaolin Monastery in Honan, Hunan province of China, there are two 12-foot-long paintings of Chinese and Africoid, black, Shaolin monks training in Kung Fu, boxing, skills together. So what are some of the references to black people's presence in consistent rulership and deification in ancient China? In Southeast Asia and southern China, ancient skeletal remains represented the earliest inhabitants to be Australoids and Negrito. By the beginning of the present Holocene period, the population in China could be differentiated and placed into categories designating Mongoloid in the north and Oceanic on black races in the south.
Okay, so let me look that up. The earliest remains in China. Let's see what comes up. I'm gonna share this. Boop boop. Um, they go to Smithsonian, top of the list. Okay, let's see. Do. Peking man, discovered in 1921, instrumental in the foundation of Chinese anthropology. Let me see. But is this Homo erectus? Okay, some shit. Peking man is characterized by the long and heavily fortified skull, featuring an inflated bar of bone circumscribing the crown. Across it along the brow ridge, over the ears, and connecting the back of the skull, as well as sagittal keel running across the midline. I don't think this is like before Homo sapiens, so it's like they're not even using any type of race. Let me see. Maybe I should have said Homo sapien earliest. This month said remains found in China may belong to third human lineage. As you see. A team of paleontologists at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, working with colleagues from Jiangtong University, the University of York, the University of Chinese Academy of Science, and the National Research Center on Human Evolution, has found evidence of a previously unknown human lineage in their study reported in Journal of Human Evolution. The group analyzed the fossilized jawbone, partial skull, and some leg bone of a hominin dated to 300,000 years ago. The fossils were excavated at a site. Let me see if I can blow that up because I know that's little as hell, especially if you're like on your phone. That's about the biggest I can blow it up. The fossil was excavated at a site in Halongdong and what is now part of East China. They are subsequently subjected to both a morphological and geometric assessment, with the initial focus on the jawbone, which exhibited unique features, a triangular lower edge and a unique bend. The research team suggests that the unique features of the jawbone resemble those of both modern humans and late Pleistocene hominids. But they also found that it did not have a chin, which suggests that it was more closely related to older species. Then found other features. They found other features that resemble hominins in the Middle Pleistocene, which, when taken together, suggest the individual most resembled a Homo erectus species, and that they conclude suggest a hybrid of modern human and ancient hominin. The researchers note that the combination of features has never before been observed in hominins in East Asia, suggesting that traits found in the modern humans began to appear as far back as 300,000 years ago. In turning their attention to the skull, which a prior team had found to be the first ever Middle Pleistocene human skull found in southeastern China, the new team found that the bones in the face were more similar to those in modern humans than was the case for the jawbone. In an effort to determine the species for the remains, the team ruled out Denovician. That left them with the likelihood that the fossils represent a third lineage, one that is not Denovician or Homo erectus, and is closer to Homo sapien. And if this is the case, the species would very likely have shared some evolutionary relationships with hominids of the middle or late Pleistocene, resulting in shared characteristics. Let me see. There was a black samurai, I think I read history about, because they were going to do a film about it, but the pandemic shut it down. I don't know if they still gonna do the film. I've seen some images about the giant intelligence. Oh, okay, I read that one. Suave, yo, one man show is way more educating than that. Your one man show is way more educating than the immaturity on the other panel. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to them. Let everybody do their thing, but yeah. Let me see. That's hard. And that's crazy. They always look at that. And it says new human species. Let me see if I can find. Well, that's like 2 minutes. So now they're introducing a third human species. I guess it's the Homo sapien, and the Denovisian, and that is this guy. Ancient skull uncovered in China could be 1,000,000 years old. That's a rabbit trail that I'm not scared to go down. But let's just see. I'm gonna get through this because I still got to get to the one showing um Africans making it to the Americas.
Both of these groups evolved out of a common Upper Pleistocene substratum as represented by the Tzu-Yang and Liuchian skulls. More importantly, is that by at least 2500 BC Africoids of the Mediterranean and West African type entered this area by way of India. The skeletal evidence from the Shantung and Kiangsu China show the modern Africoid type, especially at the initial Qinglian King and Machia Bang phases. Notice that 2500 BC also happens to fall in the Old Kingdom of Kemet and the height of pyramid building. Other ancient Chinese sources describe the wealthy Mon Khmer who ruled the ancient kingdoms of Chamba, Funan, and Kampa, Lin Yi, as having curly hair and black skin. We see this description often in ancient text when referring to black people. These are some of the clear phenotypes of black people from Africa, and these appear in multiple instances throughout China and Asia as a whole. The skeletal evidence of the Africoid people have been located in Majiabang, Qinglengang, Jiangxi, Pearl River Delta, Yunnan, Sichuan, Jiantong, and Shandong areas. The black people are said to have heavily influenced the culture of the northern China. Most of the northern China's Africoids are said to have come from East and West Africa. Till this day, there is strong resemblance between the ethnic Chinese and the Central African Khoisan H. Imber. There are many references to these black people in Chinese literature. According to T. de Lacoperi, the Chinese first met these tribes in 2116 BC, when they advanced eastwards of the great southern bend of the Yellow River. The Chinese first met these tribes in 2116 BC.
2116 BC. 2116 BC. Africans in what we now call China. That's enough time to been there, moved on, been forgot about, came back, moved on, been forgot about again.
when they advanced eastwards of the great southern bend of the Yellow River. They are spoken of in the Zhou Li, composed under the Zhou dynasty, 1122, 249 BC, as black and oily-skinned.
Now, this is in Chinese literature. The Chinese people are saying, and one thing that I used to point out years ago is that China has like this very long, extensive, unbroken history, like Egypt. I think Egypt has the longest, and then Asia has the second longest. And when you're dealing with Asia and China and stuff like that, they're the ones who go back these monstrous amounts of years. They're not going back 200 years. They're not going back 500 years and being impressed. These people are talking about 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, you know, in literature.
Prince Liu Nan, who died in 122 BC, speaks of references of blacks in China as late as the Tang dynasty. In the Lin Yi Kuo Chuan, contained in Book 197 of the Chu Tang Shu, it is written that the people living to the south of Lin Yi have woolly hair and black skin. In addition to the above, Chinese folklore mentions an empress of China named Li, 373-397 AD, who was the consort of the Emperor Xiao Wu I, was a black. In addition to...
How do you ignore that? Now we're in the AD time, 100-something AD, with a black ruler in China. And remember, it's a coincidence that they call their rankings, their governments, dynasties, their ages, dynasties. And Egypt also goes by dynasties. Could be nothing, but I think that, like, I don't hear nothing English dynasties, Scottish dynasties. I don't hear that. I hear dynasty being used in Egypt and in Asia.
Fighting the Yi, the Zhou also conquered the Negritos of southern China. Many of these blacks presently live in Cochin, China, and Yunnan. The Xia people came in contact with these black inhabitants in 2116 BC. They are mentioned in the Zhou Li as living along the Yellow River. The name of the Yangtze River Basin area were also constantly at war with the Zhou. The Nam were closely related to the Tibetans of Sichuan. At this time, the Man states were ruled by princes. The arrival of black people in China in ancient times was significant enough in the Bronze Age to show up with such a high frequency in the literature and art of ancient and more recent historical China. But their presence also shows up in many other ways. People descended from a different lineage of the Homo gene plea set out to prove that Chinese...
That this was the part that was interesting to me. Listen to this. And this is how a lot of discoveries are found. People trying to disprove something.
When Professor Jin Li set out to prove that Chinese people descended from a different lineage of the Homo gene pool, his study led him to in fact confirm that all, without exception, all Chinese people are descended from black people.
All, without exception, all Chinese people descend from black people. Listen to this.
When Professor Jin Li set out to prove that Chinese people descended from a different lineage of the Homo gene pool, his study led him to in fact confirm that all, without exception, all Chinese people are descended from black people. And I quote, "We did not see even one single individual that could be considered as a descendant of Homo erectus in China. Rather, everybody was a descendant from our ancestors in Africa." End quote. In time, the ethnic Chinese, just like the Mesoamericans, went on to create an equally impressive civilization that grew large and strong from their Kemetic seeding. The contribution of the Africans, however,
Okay, so I found this on Jen Lee. Let's share this, please. Jen Lee is a Chinese geneticist and academic administrator currently serving as president of Fudan University since 2021. Science. A scientist. Chinese geneticist and academic administrator, currently serving as president of Fudan University since 2021. Jen joined Fudan University from the University of Cincinnati in 2003 to serve as dean of the Fudan University School of Life Science. And let's go with personal life, education, cool. But Jen is a leading proponent of the model of recent African origin in modern humans. His research presented evidence that the majority of the gene pools in China originated from Africa. His team analyzed the Y chromosome of males around China and compared this group with those of Southeast Asians and Africans. Results of the analysis suggested that Southeast Asia was the first destination of the migration from Africa to Asia, which began approximately 60,000 years ago. Science. Africans migrating into Asia 60,000 years ago. From there, migrants moved into southern China, then crossing the Yangtze River to northern China. He could not find any evidence that this is consistent with the hypothesis of independent origin in China. In the 1998 study, which used genetic markers called microsatellites to compare Chinese populations. He stated that while his research does not necessarily rule out independent origin, the burden of proofs have been shifted to those who believe in independent origin. The findings contrast with the hypothesis that the Peking man was the ancestor of Chinese people. So, mainstream science, archaeology is saying the Peking man, remember the Peking man I put up with the elongated head and stuff like that, was the ancestor of Chinese people. This man, who's the president of a university, went to the University of Cincinnati, went back to his people, and got all of this stuff done, all these credentials, pat him on his back, bam. He's saying that Chinese people descend from Africans that migrated 60,000 years ago, which began 60,000 years ago. Now, remember, the alternative, the mainstream situation is a hypothesis that stands on the fact that Africans didn't come into contact with China. Africans just wandered around with bones in their nose, swinging from trees, eating slugs out the ground, living in mud huts, if that, with flies in their eyes, with blown up bellies, just walking around in circles, not even walking around unless something made them move. All Africans just sat there. No. So that hypothesis that, cannot negate. He says the burden of proof is on y'all now. He analyzed the Y chromosome of males around China and compared the group of those of Southeast Asians and Africans. Results of the analysis suggested that Southeast Asia was the first destination for migration from Africa to Asia, which began approximately 60,000 years ago. All right, let's go.
in the early days of China is now understood to have been decisive. I would like to leave you with these words of wisdom.
可以肯定的是，当种族主义的面纱被移除时，历史研究变得更加有趣。
One thing is certain is that history becomes far more interesting to study when the veil of racism is removed.
When the veil of racism is removed.
positive comments.
Okay, bet. So now,
The like button and left a comment.
okay. So now let me get into this last video. Now peep game on this.
On the early morning of October 12, 1492, Christopher Columbus and his crew finally arrived on the coast of the Bahamas. This discovery in time would be advertised as one of the most daring and history-changing feats, but they are a few things that history books almost unanimously omit as part of this narration. It will change the way you look at pre-Columbus American history, for good. Now, it is well documented that the Portuguese sought the help of the Africans in order to improve the seaworthiness of their ships ahead of their attempts to cross the Atlantic. In fact, pretty much all major early expeditions from Europeans to cross the Atlantic had notable African sea explorers as part of their crew. That is because at the time, the Africans on the west coast were renowned sea travelers. In a symbolic twist of fate, Pedro Nunes Columbus's pilot for the Santa Maria, whose mother was of African descent, would be imprisoned and die in jail after returning with untold spoils from one of his voyages to America. He was said to have angered the throne when he had not given the king his appropriate share. But Columbus's crossing may not have been the first time that Mesoamericans encountered someone crossing the Atlantic. Today, archaeologists now agree that the Vikings landed in North America at the start of the second millennium. What if I told you that there is a large body of carbon-dated physical evidence that shows an African presence and a cross-cultural influence between African and Mesoamerican civilizations?
Carbon-dated physical evidence. Not some legend, not some oral myth. Carbon-dated physical evidence.
Namely the Olmecs, the mother civilization for the Americas, but also the Mayans and the Aztecs. And this all the way back to the late Bronze Age. If any of the items below existed between classical civilizations, we would de facto attribute these occurrences to influence from the older civilization to the latter. But as you will see, we don't just have one such link, we have too many to cite in one video. So we will focus on a few salient ones. For clarity, in no way do these findings try to say that the indigenous, and I use that word carefully, that the indigenous Native American did not create, contribute meaningfully, nor are not capable of civilization building. However, these findings point to a clear influence that lies in its origin across the Atlantic. There is also a growing body of evidence that shows that the cultural influence also went from Mesoamerica to West Africa and Kemet, and we will see examples of this. If anything, what the evidence below shows is that both people were equally as innovative, capable, and entrepreneuring. As a quick note, we also publish on Spotify as a podcast. Check the description for links. On the presence of Africans in America before 1492, the historian Dr. Ivan van Sertima states, and I quote, "So there you have it, eyewitness accounts, metallurgical evidence, linguistic evidence, botanical evidence, cartographic evidence, oceanographic evidence, skeletal, oral, documented, and above all, iconographic evidence. That is, paintings and sculptures of these people which show clearly, except to those who refuse to see, all the features we associate with the African." End quote. But what of their contribution to the New World? How reliable is this evidence? And did Africans have any influence in kickstarting the civilizations that we know in the Americas? Mesoamerican culture shows signs of multiple waves of Kemetic influence, with a significant one happening during Mayan times in 100 BCE, coinciding with the fall of Kemet and migration of ancient Egyptians Kemetu out of Egypt in 300 BC. But let's start with evidence from those who arrived in America for the first time in 1492 and soon after. Perhaps the most telling evidence of Africans being present in America prior to 1492 is the first-hand accounts from European explorers themselves. Columbus himself, on his second voyage to the America, met natives with gold-tip spears from present-day Haiti. They told him that black-skinned people had come from the southeast and had traded with them. Columbus took 2 of these spearheads back to Spain to have them analyzed. And this is what he found when he had them tested. They were identical, not similar, but identical in their composition to spears made in West Africa. 18-part gold, 6-part silver, and 8-part copper. To be clear, this alloy signature is unique to West Africa. In
Christopher Columbus came into some indigenous Americans, some Indians in America, Native Americans, and they had gold-tipped spears. And these people' testimony was that people came from the southeast and traded with them. He took some of these spears back and found out that they had the unique components of gold, silver, and what was it? Aluminum. That was specific to West Africa. It's not a coincidence. That shows a science, first of all, of metallurgy, right? Trade with people in the Americas. Or how come this is, you've observed this, put your scientific method to that. You observed this. Now, how do you think these people got these gold tip spears? And they not making them. They don't know nothing about this metal mixing of these spheres.
In fact, the similarities don't stop there. The words that the native used for spears was identical to the words used by the Africans. Guanin.
And they called the spheres the same thing. These spears was called guanin in Africa, and they're called guanin by these Native Americans. These Africans said, here, these are guanins, buy one. Look how cool it is, how reliable it is.
If I tell you that there is a tale of a being who walks on water, performs miracles, is born of a virgin birth, that resurrected on the 3rd day of his death, and if I then proceeded to tell you that the exact same story appeared on the other side of the ocean a few centuries later, would you not concluded that the first civilization seeded that story onto the second one? And yet in this case, mainstream historians have chosen to ignore the evidence from the oh-so-celebrated Columbus himself. You also have other commentators like Lopez de Gomara, who wrote that these blacks Balboa saw were identical with the blacks we have seen in Guinea. Rodrigo de Colmenares reported that one of the captains of Balboa saw blacks east of the Gulf of San Miguel. In truth, there are a dozen more such accounts, but the pattern they draw is that Africans came in significant numbers to the Americas before 1492, and they can be found in higher concentration where the Atlantic current comes to its terminus. At this point, you must be thinking, if there were so many black Africans in the Americas prior to Columbus, then there must be some record, or at least some skeletal remains we can rely on. Let's first look at what the Mesoamericans themselves said when it comes to this matter. And they couldn't have been louder than expressing themselves with these giant head statues, the Olmec heads. Here, I would like to echo renowned historian Dr. Matthew Sterling and I, quote, "Despite its great size, the workmanship is delicate and sure, the proportions perfect. Unique in character among Aboriginal American sculptures, it is remarkable for its realistic treatment. The features are bold and amazingly Africoid." End quote. Olmec heads had African features, Egyptian headdress. Some even had Ethiopian-style braids. In fact, one of these heads and its photograph was so Africoid that it had been suppressed for more than 4 decades before Dr. Ivan van Sertima revealed it to the world. I mean, you can't make this up. This is yet another example of the clear intellectual dishonesty from a few Eurocentrist historians. Even so, till today, a non-African origin for the people depicted by these heads is brought forward. And yet, if you ask any kid what ethnicity these heads belong to, the answer would be without tergiversation: Black African. The consensus date for the construction of these heads is 814 BC. This dates back to Pharaonic Egypt and especially during the Kushite Renaissance. So what other depictions of them exist? Professor Alexander von Wuthenau, who authored The Unexpected Faces in Ancient America, 1500 BC to 1500 AD, states, and I quote, "The startling fact is that in all parts of Mexico, archaeological pieces representing Negro or Africoid people have been found, especially in archaic or pre-classic sites," end quote. These portraits capture not only the dense close curl and kink of Africoid hair, the occasional goatee beard, unknown to the American Indian chin, projecting jaws, coloration, broad noses, and full-fleshed lips, but also African ear pendants, headdresses, coiffures, facial tattoos, and scarification. On December 4th, 1975, the New York Times reported that the Smithsonian Institute had found 2 Negro male skeletons in the U.S. Virgin Island that dated to 1250 AD. Their dental mutilations were also characteristic of African cultures. This was just one of the numerous such examples found throughout Mesoamerica. With the African presence in America firmly established well before Columbus, let's look at how they affected the culture of the New World. In the 18th century, the French missionary Pierre Maillard documented the hieroglyphics used by the Mi'kmaq. They lived in the areas of the Great Lakes, next to the Canadian province called Quebec, north of New York State. After Maillard documented their glyphs, they remained relatively unimportant until the 1970s, when Barry Fell undertook a comparative study of these glyphs with their Egyptian counterpart. The similarities were so numerous they could not be attributed to chance. See for yourself.
Now how is the Mesoamerican? Now remember, we already showed that the Chinese characters matching hieroglyphics in Egypt. So now how do we get name, right? That's the what was it, logogram? Did you put your word in? Name. Let me see if I can blow this all the way up so I can see it. No, this part. Yeah. Nome, Montaigne, Metello, Argento, Oro, Pietra, Sabia, Povera, Mar-a-Lago, Flume, Esericom, Idoli. Look at the similarities. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
Yourself. North of New York State. After
Goodness, beauty, truth, holy, heaven, all for exalted one God. Same shit, without these people ever meeting each other.
In the 18th century, the French missionary Pierre Maillard documented the hieroglyphics used by the Mi'kmaq. They lived in the areas of the Great Lakes, next to the Canadian province called Quebec, north of New York State. After Millard documented their glyphs, they remained relatively unimportant until the 1970s, when Barry Fell undertook a comparative study of these glyphs with their Egyptian counterpart. The similarities were so numerous they could not be attributed to chance. See for yourself. What followed, however,
Now this is what blew me, right? Look at this architecture. Look at this style of architecture. Look at the homes. Look at the buildings. Look at the doorways. Look at the windows. Look at the stairs. Look at the fact it's in a cave or under a cliff. Cliff dwelling in Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado.
was an example of the many denial attempts by historians that many of us have become accustomed to. Historians did agree that the similarities were beyond what pure coincidence could explain. However, they dismissed the idea of Egyptians reaching.
And now look in Mali. Look at the architecture. Look at the shapes of the buildings. Look at the doors. Look at the placement of the windows. The fact it's built under a cliff like that. Now, do you think these two cultures came to this style of architecture independently, coincidentally, or did one influence the other?
Reaching the Americas as impossible. Even though it has been well documented counterpart, the similarities were so numerous. What followed, however, was an example of the many denial attempts by historians that many of us have become accustomed to. Historians did agree that the similarities were beyond what pure coincidence could explain. However, they dismissed the idea of Egyptians reaching the Americas as impossible. Even though it has been well documented that Kemet had seaworthy ships. In fact, in 1970, Thor Heyerdahl conducted 2 expeditions, Ra 1 and Ra 2, to demonstrate that Kemetic boats were seaworthy. They successfully sailed from Morocco to Barbados in 52 days. That is 12 days faster than Amerigo Vespucci. To demonstrate that Kemetic, Thor idea of Egypt.
Now I asked them, what was the smallest boat that ever made it across the Atlantic Ocean? This thing was just like 5 feet, 3 feet to 5 feet, something. And you don't think Africans was able to build a large enough boat, a seaworthy vessel that could cost only $1,700 from the west coast of Africa to the east coast of South America at its most closest point is 1,700 miles. There were lakes in Central Africa that was 3 times larger than that. Let's go.
Egyptians reaching the Americas as impossible, even though it has been well documented that Kemet had seaworthy ships. In fact, in 1970, Thor Heyerdahl conducted 2 expeditions, Ra 1 and Ra 2, to demonstrate that Kemetic boats were seaworthy. They successfully sailed from Morocco to Barbados in 52 days. That is 12 days faster than Amerigo Vespucci.
Now, why isn't mainstream science updating us? Why is mainstream science still telling us Africans didn't have seaworthy vessels, ocean-worthy vessels? Well, this dude did an experiment twice. Built boats from Kemet, put them on the ocean, and sailed from Morocco to South America in 52 days.
The architecture of the temples and monuments is also remarkably similar. Here is a little-known fact. The base of the...
And that's the boat of Khufu. And a lot of people don't even know this boat exists. This boat was found at the base of the Great Pyramid, dismantled. They discovered it and put it back together. All the pieces was there, like, unlike the toys that got passed down, all the pieces were there. Ain't that something? And this boat isn't even talked about.
The Pyramid of the Sun is exactly the same as that of the Pyramid of Giza. Both have a base of 230 meters side or 756 feet. This is remarkable. From the stone-built pyramids to the doorways and corbelled vault arches. These are not mere resemblances, but they carry signatures of the same methods of building and the same preference for materials. Both Egyptians and Mayan pyramids are built of limestones. Both cultures used pyramids as a burial place for their rulers, just like in Egypt. Even if the pyramids in the Giza complex were not built tombs. The majority of the 100 pyramids discovered to date in Egypt were tombs. All the pyramids in Nubia were also tombs. Other cultural and religious similarities can also be found. Both cultures had religious systems revolving around the sun god as the supreme deity, but they also had a Book of the Dead. The similarities also extend to how the Mayan measured time. Both Egyptian and Mayan calendars had a 365-day calendar without a leap year, referred to as the wandering year. Both calendars had their new years in July. In fact, the Mayan calendar can be seen as an inheritance from the Olmec calendar, also a 365-day calendar, and it doesn't stop there. Cranial deformation was also practiced in both cultures, especially the elites. In fact, it was practiced by all three major civilizations in Mesoamerica. Akhenaten and his son King Tut are both famous for having practiced cranial deformation, but this practice was also widespread in Olmecs, Mayan, and Aztec civilizations. The victory scenes from both cultures are virtually identical. See the depiction of the Narmer palette and scenes from the Aztec Codex. One of the most telling similarities between both these cultures is rooted in how they decided to record information. The similarities between Mayan and Egyptian hieroglyphs just cannot be attributed to chance. Both use phonograms followed by ideograms to relate meaning. These are pretty much the only languages in history to do so. The odds of that happening independently, randomly, and within the same time period is astronomically impossible. When you add all the other similarities, the conclusion becomes obvious. Just for context, other independently developed writing systems in the world look nothing like hieroglyphics, and they especially do not follow the same format. But it goes further because there were other cross-Atlantic writing systems that were all too similar. The Veii script from ancient Mali has been found on pre-Columbus Mesoamerican artifacts. This is information you rarely hear from archaeologists today. It is widely known, however, that Mali king Abubakar was documented. The Veii script from ancient Mali has been found on pre-Columbus Mesoamerican artifacts.
The Veii script from ancient Mali been found on pre-Columbian artifacts in South America.
This is information you rarely hear from archaeologists. The Veii script from ancient Mali has been found on pre-Columbus Mesoamerican artifacts. This is information you rarely hear from archaeologists today. It is widely known, however, that Mali king Abubakar was documented to have left Africa to cross the Atlantic in search of the land on the other side of the sea in 1300 CE with a fleet of 200 ships. This is because they already knew the earth was round, as shown in the manuscripts of Timbuktu. See our previous video on this, link in the description. Cross-Atlantic influence also went in the other direction of the Atlantic. Egyptian mummies have been found to have drugs in their digestive systems, drugs that were native to the Americas at the time. Dr. Svetla Balabanova came across traces of both coca and tobacco. This quickly became a very perplexing find, as neither product was grown outside of the Americas until after Columbus arrived. This means that all the way back in 1250 BC, Africans were going back and forth to the Americas.
Now you see how big it is.
The
Remember I
large
said,
number
look how big it is. Look at her coming out of this door.
Americas.
Look at this. She's what, 5 something? That's a 20-foot, 25-foot opening. And the people are even bigger than that. The statues of the people are even larger than that. Look at that. Now, how old is this? BC?
The large number of depictions of elephants in pre-Columbus art gives strong indications that the Mali Empire would have brought with them elephants during their Atlantic crossing. The Mali Empire was documented to have carried elephants in their ships, so it is very possible and in fact reasonable to assume that the numerous depictions of elephants in the New World would have been from Africans crossing the Atlantic with them. These depictions of Olmec pottery on the left and Mayan carving of elephants on the right are a great example of this. So to be clear, it is not evidence that is lacking. No, in fact, we have more evidence that we would care to admit. The true problem is the continuation of dishonest archaeological practices that really started to take flight in the late 18th and 19th century. It is our duty to undo the centuries of misplaced and ill-intentioned omissions and misinformations and help the next generation realize the true potential of the human mind, whatever cloth it is wrapped in. I would like to leave you with this last quote from the great teacher himself on the opposition one faced in his life when trying to expose the truth. Quote, "Well, fighting for a new vision of man, a new vision of history, is worth it, painful though it may be. The warrior's courage does not protect him from the wound of bullets. But I have found over time, David, that the negatives have been my greatest help. That is the one lesson I have learned over the years. The negative is very important. Oftentimes, it is more important than the positive. Sometimes, if something is highly successful and meets no great opposition, it can make you facile. If it meets with great negatives, it can be even better in the end."
Now that's hard. And let me see. Let me share this right quick. Okay, this is ancientorigins.net. All right, and it says 6 discoveries that show the pre-Columbian Americas traded across the oceans. Let me blow this up some. Bam. Okay, elephants in America. It says despite being non-native to Americas, elephants were still depicted by the ancient inhabitants of North and South America using a variety of mediums. What is we doing? Examples include the Montezuma Valley jar, which was unearthed in 1885 at a Native American site, and the elephant slabs discovered in 1910 amongst Native American ruins in Flora Vista in New Mexico. The Vaya script of the ancient Mali Empire can be found on the elephant slabs. Records from the ancient Mali Empire also happen to detail multiple expeditions across the Western Ocean at different periods in their history. When exploring New Mexico in 1528, the Spanish explorer Cabeza de Vaca detailed distinct groups of black-skinned native and red-skinned natives. One of these groups was named the Mandinka. Curiously enough, the Mandinkas founded the Mali Empire. It should be no stretch to believe that the Mali Empire interacted with the Americas. At its height, it was one of the most powerful and sophisticated empires in the world. Records from the 1300s regarding mariners trading far to the west detail one expedition as having 200 ships, and a later expedition led personally by the emperor at the time, Mansa Abu Bakari, having over 1,000. As well, the Mali Empire of this period is known to have been powerful enough to reduce such giant forces. But even more importantly, the South Equatorial Current, which had carried the Mali Empire ships right to America. It would seem that the Mali Empire and or another of the great African empire brought elephants with them during their expeditions to the Americas in the ancient past. The elephant was a primary beast of burden for the Mali Empire, and it's known that they carried elephants on their ships to different parts of the world, so it seems logical that some would have joined their trips across the Atlantic. Though, even if elephants themselves didn't make the journey, the Mali seafarers would certainly remember the iconic creatures. Interestingly, native tribes throughout North America have myths describing creatures most identical to elephants. Giant beasts that slept while standing up or leaning against a tree and used an arm like ours to eat from the boughs of trees. Other examples of elephants can be found in Mayan writing and sculptures, Olmec pottery, and metal plates from as far as south as Ecuador. And there's the examples of that. And let's see. This was an interesting one to me. Drugs in Americas and mummies. While examining the mummified remains of Lady Henu Tao and a member of the Egyptian ruling class, Dr. Svetla Babylonova, came across traces of both coca and tobacco. This quickly became a very perplexing find, as neither product was grown outside of the Americas until after Columbus arrived. So Columbus went and got it, came back and discovered these mummies stuffed their stomachs full of cocaine and tobacco and then hid them again. The discovery ignited a firestorm in the academic community, and it was assumed, and why do, when truth come out, new evidence come out, it's a firestorm. People are like, come on, you telling me nobody was saying, Africans might have came to the Americas. So all it is, oh, that's true? Okay, well, let's incorporate that into our conclusion. And if the evidence leads you to correct yourself in the fact that, oh, Africans didn't come here. Oh, now we got to say Africans did. What is the big firestorm? Because you have an agenda. The firestorm is, oh shit, how are we going to lie about this? How are we going to be able to cover this up? How are we going to be able to alter this truth to fit our narrative that black people are ignorant and deserve to be enslaved? The discovery ignited a firestorm in the academic community, and it was assumed that there must have been a contamination of the mummy itself wasn't authentic. But after another thorough analysis, the find was found to be authentic. The ability to reach and trade with the Americas wouldn't have been out of question for the Egyptians. They're known to have developed massive ships capable of carrying over 250 men along with animals, food, and trading goods. They also worked closely with the Phoenicians, who are known as the greatest seafarers of the ancient world. But they want you to believe that they just went along the coast of Africa and never went out into open waters. And architecture of the ancient Americas. The cliff dwellings of the American Southeast share striking similarity with those that can be found in West Africa. The Mali Empire, or groups within their realm, are responsible for the creation of the cliff dwellings that can be found in West Africa. And the Anasazi are known to have created many of the cliff dwellings found in the American Southeast. However, with just a picture alone, it's unlikely someone could tell which ruins belong where. The style of construction is essentially identical, and is the locations chosen the materials used. Much of the American ruins, Palatki, for instance, are also believed to have been found during the period of the Mali Empire, where records indicate trips across the Atlantic were taking place. Additionally, Malayan script and petroglyphs have not only been found throughout the surrounding region, but also at the sites of these cliff dwellings. Look to the work of the anthropologist and linguist Dr. Clyde Winters for a thorough survey and analysis of West African scripts and petroglyphs in the human Southwest. The Celtic Arhuns inscriptions. Located around the four corner regions of America are a number of sites which appear to show the presence of European travelers in the ancient past. Of these, what can be found at Crack Canyon in Colorado stands out. And you see the similarity. Carved up on the walls inside the Narrow Canyon is a line of Alchem script, the oldest written language in Ireland. The appearance of Alchem script is inconspicuous, which can often lead to it being overlooked as simple scratches. However, researcher Bill McGlone was fortunate enough to recognize its inscription while searching the local area. After the discovery, the site was sealed off with a tall iron gate by park services to prevent damages. So if they came from Ireland, the inscription translates to "We are the people of the sun, and on the day of Baal, the sun will strike here." So we can't even see if these are white people just by the script because it came from Ireland. Because I know one of the myths is that Thoth came from Ireland, and Thoth's supposed to be the script writer or something like that, the script of ancient Egypt, and that one of the Egyptian queens, after a war, Egypt was invaded and overtaken. She retreated to Ireland. As it happens, the day of Baal is the day of the summer equinox, and when the site is observed on the summer equinox, the inscription is perfectly illuminated, not on the days before and not on the days after. It's an inscription reminiscent in content and style of a waypost that would have been utilized by the ancient Druids. If someone were to find such a marking, they know who left it and have a means to determine the time of the year. Interesting to note, the Druids are well known for their obsession with monitoring time and the movements of celestial bodies. In the stories of them that remain, they're said to have been prolific world travelers. It's worth mentioning that Bill McGlone wasn't the first to recognize these markings. In 1975, historian Dr. Donald G. Rickey, chief historian for the Bureau of Land Management, at the time was investigating the site of a 19th century battle when he happened across a series of markings in a stone wall. He initially termed them spear sharpening marks. However, as luck would have it, he traveled to Scotland a few weeks later, where he happened to be taken to a museum showcasing examples of Alchem script. He instantly was reminded of the markings he'd seen in Colorado. So, that's hard. The Fuente Magna Bowl. Found in 1958 near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, the Fuente Magna Bowl quickly earned the name the Rosetta Stone of the Americas because of the two forms of script rendered along the inside, a Proto-Sumerian ancient alphabet and the language of the Chavin, which may be the oldest civilizations to have inhabited the region. And there that goes. The Proto-Sumerian script on the Fuente Magna Bowl. Numerous experts have gone out of their way to examine the bowl, though they've all found themselves stumped, as both the dating and inscriptions appear authentic, despite the improbable nature of the artifact. The unique style of the Proto-Sumerian inscription is also what would be expected from a distinct Proto-Sumerian group. And here is the typical Javan symbols on the Fuente Magna Bowl. Curiously, other Sumerian artifacts have been found in South America, though none seem to be quite as enigmatic as the Fuente Magna Bowl. Hieroglyphics of the Mi'kmaq written language are also non-existent in Native American cultures, to the extent that only a single written language is known to have existed in all of America and Canada. That single language belongs to the Mi'kmaq, a culture that lived along the Atlantic coast, and it happens to share a bizarre number of similarities with Egyptian hieroglyphs. You're telling me that mainstream academia is teaching that there was only one language, written language. Sheesh. Okay. Even though we have these markings up here in these walls, like nobody, this not a writing system. What was they doing? Counting? Um, in the early 18th century, a French missionary by the name of Pierre Maillard meticulously documented the hieroglyphs of the Mi'kmaq culture during this time in the area. However, it wasn't until the 1970s that Professor Barry Fell meticulously pored over the missionary's work and published a comprehensive side-by-side of the Mi'kmaq writing with ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. He found an astonishing number of similarities between the two forms, which led him to suggest that the Egyptians must have reached the Atlantic coast at some point in the past, as that seemed more reasonable than simply dismissing it all as a staggering coincidence. Viewing the research, academics agreed that the similarities was far too great for it to all simply be coincidence. However, with isolationism still in full swing, the idea of Egyptians reaching America was written off as nonsensical. Sensical. Nonsensical, sorry. Instead, an alternative explanation was devised. The French missionary must have made it all up. The new theory being the only explanation that fits conventional history posits that Miller devised the entire system of writing in order for the Mi'kmaq to be able to record the teachings of Christianity. Why he would use hieroglyphics, the writing of pagan culture, instead of his own native writing is baffling. Yet the theory becomes more and more absurd when one remembers that hieroglyphics weren't translated into the next century. So how did he manage to match so many of the symbols and concepts? Sounds like the Smithsonian showed up. I'm telling you, when them iron gates go up, Smithsonian been on bullshit. Too many like to go with the isolationist theory. I don't agree with it. Timbuktu shows too much cultural innovation for them to be isolationists. Facts. So we already went through the similarities of those writings. We did see that. And there it is, man. So if any of them want to go over any of this information and actually come and have a conversation, I would like for them to, you know, I would like for them to. So let's see if that ever happens, you know. So like I said, this is response to, you know, the guys over there at Q Bundles panel. Any of this information you would like to go over, you would like to rebut, you would like to have a conversation about, please do. I doubt if you ever would. It only take one of you, you know. Of course, I'll mention and bring it up if I'm on the panel again. When I get back on the panel, I've been avoiding devastating these panels because I don't like who I have to be in order to even, you know, get the mic over there, you know. But yeah. So there was the Terrence Howard video showing what science needs to be corrected, right? The math is off. We saw ancient travels of Africa, out of Africa, being able to cross the Atlantic into South America, and also traveling into Asia and creating that society. And we also saw the professor show that his research led to the conclusion that all Chinese people descend from Africans. It's crazy that I got to do it like this. I can't just get on the panel and I'm having a conversation. But when you get into an echo chamber, you know I hate echo chambers. People are intellectual supremacists. They think they're always right and they're willing to use their power to mute you, shut you up, kick you off the panel before you prove them wrong. And they have this wolf pack mentality where they can't stand to see each other be corrected by an outsider, you know, and then they, you know, they never correct each other. So the video is there. If anybody pop in, we want to have a general discussion, we can, man. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. This is 3 hours long. I appreciate y'all. Shout out to y'all. It's the boy Swab Boss, Black Power. Keep y'all head up so you see the bullshit coming. And work is work, but it ain't gotta be torture, man. Man, you progress in lanes in which you have a passion, because work is work, but it ain't gotta be torture. I appreciate y'all, man. It's the boy Swab Boss. This is the Argument League.